From the Sierra Madre, it's the IGN Digigods. Now please welcome two men who don't need to show you any stinking badges, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Uh-oh. Corey, who made the Treasure of the Sierra Madre reference?
That was sent in by Chevelle Dixon, and I would like to see his stinking badge.
You know, a lot of people actually think that line, people who are less movie savvy, they think that that line is a Blazing Saddles line.
You mean it's not?
No, it's whatever. Anyway, we're going to talk about Blazing Saddles today as well. It's an anniversary Blu-ray release. But first, Mark, how about that Donald Sterling?
That's an old story now.
I know.
We're over it. We're on to something
but
else.
It's still funny.
It's
tragic on many levels, and you know, not to make light of it, but I just have such a deep loathing for Donald Sterling, and always have. Look, anybody who lives in L.A. has just, for years, when the Clippers were in the basement, you're just like, why does he even own the team? Like, what's the point? He
bought the thing for like $13 million.
I know.
It's just and you know, if he winds up selling it, which he'll never do,
he'll get hundreds of millions out of it.
He'll get $500 million out of that.
Yeah.
Of profit out of that thing.
Yeah.
What's funny is that, like, you know, it was the worst kept secret in sports that he was a dirtbag.
It's not even a secret.
Yet when everybody was making money, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Now suddenly, he's a dirtbag who's now affecting the business of the NBA with sponsors pulling out and whatnot. So now suddenly everyone cares he's a dirtbag.
Yeah.
When everyone was making money, nobody cared he was a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Now that you're affecting the bottom line, everyone cares he's a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Welcome to capitalism.
One of the most
America.
notorious slumlords in LA history, and you know, anyway. Nothing to do with DVDs, but certainly if you live in LA, it continues to be the conversation, the topic of conversation.
That is true.
And I thought Donald Trump came out with a quote. It's almost as if he felt, wait a minute, this guy is he's a billionaire named Donald who likes arm candy. I must stick up for our club. You remember Donald Trump came out and he's like, you know, she was a very, very bad girlfriend for recording him. It's like, what? She's a very bad girlfriend. What is there a manual for how to be like obedient arm candy? I don't understand that reference.
When you're a 31-year-old dating an 80-year-old, I mean,
who's married?
I mean, what do you expect?
Mother
know. Teresa?
Whatever. All right, Mark. We should go through. We have a ton of movies that are like, you know, classic films that have been released. A ton that have been released just in the past few weeks. And we should blow through these very quickly, just so everybody knows that they're out there. There's some really amazing stuff out there. First, however, I want to make mention of a Film Chest release. Film Chest, again, doesn't release a lot of stuff that often, but they do release you know, great movies when they come out, and the DVDs are really first rate. Even if they're, I mean, in many cases they look better than comparable Blu-rays. And Film Chest has an HD restoration on DVD from the original elements of Hedy Lamarr in The Strange Woman. Appropriate, again, because in Blazing Saddles,
Hedley.
Thank you. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr, who of course is Austrian-born, but an amazing actress with just made a lot of really cool films. And Hedy Lamarr in The Strange Woman, also starring George Sanders. And this is a classic film that has been released in a number of different versions, all of them fairly crappy looking. A few were okay. I think some public domain companies released a lot of these, but anyway, this is one of the classic kind of femme fatale films of the era, and it's from 1946. Definitely worth checking out. Wonderful restoration release from Film Chest. And then a bunch of stuff from Warner Archive. You can get all of these at warnerarchive.com. We have got A Slight Case of Larceny. This is an MGM film of the time, starring the late Mickey Rooney, along with Eddie Bracken and Elaine Stewart. I got to tell you, Mickey Rooney and Eddie Bracken in a movie together is like the original Revenge of the Nerds. That is a pairing I didn't even realize existed. And in this case, they're, you know, a couple of guys who, just really are not up to snuff with anything that they do, especially when they're in the Army together. And it's a pretty fun little geek fest. It really is, from back in the day. Wildcat Bus, starring Fay Wray and Charles Lang. Not quite as interesting as I thought that it probably might be. It feels put together very, very quickly and it's a B movie, by the way. It's in the classic sense, not just a B movie in terms of quality. It was a movie that was made to be shown on the second end of a double bill. You watch the A movie and then you watch the B movie. That's why they called them B movies. But they wanted people to stick around for the double bill. Anyway, it's okay. The whole thing kind of takes place centered around a bus line called Wildcat Bus, and Fay Wray is is a manager there. And the whole thing is kind of a wannabe noir, not the greatest. It just feels kind of rushed. A women's prison film starring Eleanor Parker and Agnes Moorehead called Caged. This is an old Warner Brothers movie, definitely in the noir vein from 1949. And Eleanor Parker, of course, also recently passed away. She was best known as the Countess in The Sound of Music. And it's a women in prison movie. What do you want? It kind of sets the tone for all of those movies. It's better directed than most by John Cromwell, who was a real director of the era and has a really wonderful Max Steiner score. Also of note in here is Ellen Corby, who of course was the grandmother on The Waltons. People will recognize her, but it's one of the first women's prison films, and it does pretty much the same thing that they all do, including a series that we're going to talk about momentarily.
Yeah,
look at what they sent. Look at this.
That's nice,
right?
Pho.
Yeah, there would be no Orange is the New Black without that movie. And then we've got Race Street, starring George Raft, William Bendix, and Marilyn Maxwell. Geez, Marilyn Maxwell is one of those people who just absolutely vanished. So many actors and actresses from that era who had these like momentary bursts of fame and then gone. But this is all right. George Raft and William Bendix play the kind of classic childhood buddies who go different directions. One follows the law and the other one follows crime. And it's kind of a noir. It's a little more in the dramatic vein. It's not quite that exciting. A little bit more of a character study. Not a lot of by way of twists and turns that you normally get in the noirs. It's not Dashiell Hammett or anything like that. But it's all right. Raft and Bendix are terrific actors, and Marilyn Maxwell. You watch this and you just go, why didn't you have a better career? Why didn't you stick around longer? And then the classic Robert Louis Stevenson Treasure Island adaptation, starring Wallace Beery and Jackie Cooper, also featuring Lionel Barrymore and Otto Kruger and Nigel Bruce. And this is just an absolutely wonderful movie. This may be I would almost say there are only 4 films that Victor Fleming directed a crap load of movies. I mean, a crap load of movies. Had his name at least on a crap load of movies. Only 4 of them really are worth watching. I would only say there are only 4 Victor Fleming films where I'm like, you must see that. Some of the others are fine, if you catch it sometime in a rerun, whatever. But obviously Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. In The Wizard of Oz, he didn't even direct that much of, frankly, but he got his name on it. Those are the 2. Those are the top 2. And then Guy Named Joe and Treasure Island. Those are the ones. Those 4. And Treasure Island is just a great, great adaptation, especially because Jackie Cooper is amazing. As a child actor, most of us saw him as kind of a big, schlubby, older guy actor, but as a kid, man, he just nailed it. He was absolutely fantastic. So if you want to see and this thing's been done so many times since, but for some reason, this is the one that really resonates. It's just so much fun. You got to check it out. Really great. 1934, a just wonderful adaptation of a great novel. And that's from Warner Archive, and I'm thrilled that they finally got that. So, what else we got, Mark?
Well, we got Godfather Part 3, which is out on its own separate
because a lot of people are going to be like, you know what, I don't really like the first 2, don't really want to own them, but I do, this one I want. This is the one I want, because it's standalone, it's great.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
This one, of course, took place, or was released many years after Godfather 2.
Yeah.
And expectations were very high. And Coppola, frankly, was just a different guy. He just did not have he didn't have the desire and the drive. He wasn't hungry anymore. And he revisited the family, and he couldn't get Robert Duvall. He winds up with Sofia Coppola, who, as a director, as an actress, she's a great director. Put it that way.
Yep.
But Pacino does come back. He's in his 60s now. It's you get a sense of what his decades of power have wrought. in one of the ultimate tragedies, which happens at the climax of the movie, which I won't tell you about. But Godfather 3, not a great movie. Was nominated for a bunch of Oscars, including Best Picture, mostly out of obligation. But, I would say with Godfather 1 and 2, I don't know why you would buy 3 as a standalone.
I don't either.
Double feature Blu-ray, we have Crocodile Dundee and Crocodile Dundee 2. Now, there was a moment there when Crocodile Dundee was like a thing.
Yeah.
It came out in '86. It starred Paul Hogan, and at the time, this is, of course, is pre-internet. Australia was a little exotic. The crazy accent, the different culture.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny. You know Outback Steakhouse? The reason why Outback Steakhouse exists partially is because of Crocodile Dundee.
Really?
Yes.
Are you kidding
Because
me?
the Outback Steakhouse has nothing to do with Australia. Like the guys who I'm not even sure the guys who developed it are even Australian. But at the time, in the mid '80s to late '80s, Australia was hot. It was their bicentennial, and I think the what's the yacht race? The famous yacht race.
Yahtzee.
Giggles.
America's Cup.
America's Cup.
Yeah.
It was in Australia, or Australia had won. Crocodile Dundee came out. Australia was having a moment, and these restaurateurs said, "You know what? We're going to take advantage."
Wouldn't it
of
be great in a yacht race where the way you win it is by yelling Yahtzee? Yahtzee. What?
All right, I regret telling this story. Anyway, so Crocodile Dundee was a phenomenon for the time. It was a cute movie. I don't think that he and Linda Kozlowski had much chemistry together, but they wound up getting married.
Yeah, I know.
So then they did.
Did they ever have kids?
That I don't know.
I wonder. He left his wife for her or some
crap
like that.
Crazy,
yeah.
right? Anyway, Crocodile Dundee 2 is a couple years later. Is not nearly as good. I thought it was fine just because I had very low tolerance for movies like that. I thought it was basically okay.
But Crocodile Dundee in L.A., man, that was a masterpiece.
Was there a Crocodile Dundee?
Yeah, Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles.
Really?
You did. That was like. Yeah.
Oh, here there was in 2001. Yes.
Oh my God!
It's awesome.
That was what?
And now Paul Hogan
Why?
is like. Does anyone even know
who he is?
What happened to
Paul
Paul
Hogan's show is not on DVD right now.
Paul Hogan does not have. You know what's funny? Paul Hogan on IMDb only has 10 credits.
Yeah.
10 acting credits.
Yeah.
3 of which are Crocodile Dundee. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
He never had any other career except for Crocodile Dundee.
That's it. Didn't need anything else.
Anyway,
well, he had the TV show, which was a bit of a hit before Crocodile Dundee. It's what got him Crocodile Dundee. The Paul Hogan show was kind of a hit for a moment in the States.
Terrible.
It's why they got the movies made.
Anyway, DreamWorks. Here's a piece of crap animated film called Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. This is I just didn't. There's so much good animated stuff out there. Why would you watch Spirit, Stallion? Look, they're literally kids who have watched Frozen 6,500 times. That if you could just put them in front of the TV and shut them up, and they'll watch Frozen for the 100th time, why even have them watch Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron? Unless you're a 10-year-old girl and you love ponies and you've run out of a pony animated films.
By the way, speaking of Spirit, Jeffrey Katzenberg has been just like shooting his mouth off this last week.
I know about the future movies.
Yeah, but everyone's jumping all over him all of a sudden. He's saying like in the future there will be. It's like he's playing Karnak. In the future, not Karnak, but the what's the year 2000, the Conan thing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's like he's going in the future. There will be movies. And DVD releases within 3 weeks of each other. They will overlap. The DVD will come out before the movie.
If he was that smart, DreamWorks wouldn't be falling apart.
That's the thing. DreamWorks Animation is like on its last legs.
Well, their whole world is How to Train Your Dragon 2. That thing has to be like the greatest movie ever.
Yeah, because Shrek was sort of their moment, and everything looked like, it's going to be Shrek until the end of time. Shrek 2 was this mega hit. And Shrek 2, you remember why Shrek 2 is legendary? On this show, we talked about it a lot. Shrek 2 was the movie. That was the one that said to everybody, the bottom just fell out of the DVD market. That was the one. That was Shrek 2. Shrek 2 made an obnoxious amount of money, became the all-time highest-grossing animated film in theatrical release. And there were these formulas, these actuarials at the time, that the studios had learned to rely on very heavily, which is if a movie makes X amount of dollars in the theater, we can count on it making X amount of money in home release and selling X amount of copies. There's an actual correlation between ticket sales and DVD sales, And we can actually correlate the ad spend from the theatrical with the ad spend that we need to do for, it all figured out perfect. It was this like master equation. And for years and years and years and years, it was consistent. It was like movie after movie after movie. And the studios were just like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. They're just making cash. It's like, we know exactly how much money is going to roll in. And they're telling this in all of their conference calls when they were talking to investors. Every 3 months you got to talk to the major investors in your conference call and go, we're doing a really good job and the stock price is going to go yada, yada, yada. It's a silly thing. But they all have to do it. And suddenly with Shrek 2, it made a giant amount of money, and it gets released on DVD, and nobody buys it. And it panicked the entire business because everybody at that time said, holy crap, the model just changed. It changed overnight, and that was the movie. And it was weird. It was like everyone went and saw Shrek 2 in the theater and then said, yeah, I don't really need to buy that. And that was, it changed everything. And that's when everybody started panicking, and that's when they started cutting independent divisions, and it was the end. Okay, my rant is done.
Your rant is done, yes.
Speaking of, 20th Century Fox is releasing Blu-rays with a very, very strange tagline. I always wonder who comes up with this stuff. You're going to see a lot of these now. The Fox Searchlight Pictures is having its 20th anniversary. And they're releasing a lot of movies on Blu-ray, and they have these little orange stickers that they're sticking on them. And some of them have just the stupid slogan like, we have your story. I don't know what that means. And some of them just say celebrating Fox Searchlight and whatever. But it's very, it's not a great looking sticker, and I don't really know why you need to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Fox Searchlight. They're doing well. They just won Best Picture with 12 Years a Slave. That's fine, but...
it's just
20 years.
It's just a marketing thing.
I know it's a marketing
just
thing.
a hook.
Well, anyway, if you are going to celebrate that 20th anniversary, are you really going to do it with Cedric the Entertainer in Johnson Family Vacation?
Hell yeah, I am.
Really?
No.
It's like a bad version of Vacation with black people. I don't really understand the point. Anyway, Cedric the Entertainer, lovely guy, very funny. Movie, not funny. Steve Harvey's in this thing too, and it's just you just gotta let it go. This never should have been made. And Bow Wow, previously known as Little Bow Wow, is in this thing as well. It's kind of a silly movie.
Bow Wow.
And then much worthier is the Napoleon Dynamite 10th Anniversary Edition.
Woo!
2-disc. Movie still holds up, I'll tell you. It still holds up. Jared Hess has a new movie that's going to come out.
Well, it's about time.
Yep. Jared Hess has a new movie coming out.
These guys have gone nowhere. They were the hip thing.
Got a new movie coming out. Sam Rockwell's in it. Jermaine Clement is in it. Good, funny people.
Jermaine Clement?
Jermaine Clement.
Is that Mr. and Mrs. Clement's kid?
Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords.
Okay.
You know who I'm talking about.
No, I don't know.
He's the big guy. The Flight of the Conchords, the big guy. Did you see Dinner for Schmucks?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Which is a horrible, horrible, dreadful, abomination, horrible remake of The Dinner Game. Which, you almost don't even know. If you've seen The Dinner Game and you watch Dinner for Schmucks, you would never imagine that it's the same movie. It's what it is. It's stupid. Because The Dinner Game never actually gets to the dinner. The Dinner for Schmucks does, and it's just dreadful. But anyway, in Dinner for Schmucks, he's the crazy kind of artsy dude with the long hair. And
right.
He steals the movie.
He was the funniest part of that movie.
He's the only funny thing in that movie.
I remember him.
He's the only funny thing in that
Sure.
movie. Anyway, he's in the new Jared Hess film.
Dead.
So Napoleon Dynamite, made a star out of John Heder for a minute or two, and it is still very, very funny. This movie really, really holds up. One of the great independent successes of the last 20 years. And lots of extras on here, outtakes, deleted scenes, audio commentator between Jared Hess and John Heder and their producer, Jeremy Kuhn, and featurettes and the whole deal. So there's great stuff there. And the golden one of these 20th century, of these Fox Searchlight releases, for me, is The Deep End. I love The Deep End. I think this is the best contemporary noir of the last 40 years.
What?
And the only thing that comes close is The Underneath.
Yeah.
I think The Deep End and The Underneath are the best noirs that anyone has made in the last 30 years. They are both absolutely straight up great because they are exactly like classic noirs. Scott McGee and David Siegel, who are just really, really talented and had the Maisie film this last year, are really great. And the amazing thing about this is Tilda Swinton kind of cemented her mainstream reputation as a lead actress with this. This is what took her out of that whole...
She's in Snowpiercer.
Oh, is she?
Oh, yeah.
Sweet.
She's
I
great.
got to check that out. Now I really got to go. Anyway, Josh Lucas kind of came of age in this movie. Goran Vishnik, however you pronounce it, bounced out of ER for a moment and had a moment here. Here's the thing. You were not in LAFCA at this time, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to reveal a moment. The Deep End had a really interesting thing going on when we voted for Best Actress that year. Here's what happened in our LAFCA voting. There were 3 actresses in the first round of voting that were really high on everybody's list. Okay, Naomi Watts in Mulholland Drive, Halle Berry in Monsters Ball, and Tilda Swinton in this. Okay, the way we vote in LAFCA, in case people don't know this, is when you go through a category, everybody goes around and you give 3 points to your top pick, 2 points to your second, and 1 point to your third. And then after everything is done, there's a point tally, and the top 2 point getters go into a runoff, and then it's just a show of hands, and whoever wins, or it's sometimes it's a tie, like this last year we had 3. Then 2, right? 2, 3, yeah, 3. That's how it goes. So there are weird dynamics that happen, and the top point getters wound up being Naomi Watts and Halle Berry, and Halle Berry wound up winning. What was interesting about that is that if they had gone with, and I think Tilda Swinton missed the runoff by like 2 or 3 points. But if Tilda Swinton had gotten 2 or 3 points more and gotten into the runoff, she would have won because she had far and away more 3-point votes than either of the other 2. So...
How do you remember all this? This is like
because I was tallying. I was a vote tallier.
You tally every
year.
Every year.
And I remember looking at the numbers, and I remember thinking, that is amazing. That is a weird dynamic. That because the others got more second and third place votes, they wound up getting more points. But if she had just had a few more points, maybe 1 or 2 more second or third place votes, she'd have gotten into the runoff and she would have won.
Oh my Christ!
There were more people who liked her as a number 1 choice than either of the other 2, but because she didn't get as many second and third place votes, that was it. So fascinating anyway. Fascinating dynamic. All right.
Wow.
Yes.
That is a great story.
Yes.
You know
Indeed it is.
You know what else is a great story?
What else is great?
The Big Red One.
I love the Big Red One. This is the Blu-ray release of the recent director's cut.
This is the director's cut.
Love it.
Now,
love it. Best film that he ever made.
Oh, Sam Fuller?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, best film Sam.
That
Because
says
the rest
a lot.
is all kind of hysterical, pitched crap, and we love it because it's crap. You love Sam Fuller's movies because he's a crazy man. That's why we like it.
You love him because, well, first of all, I love Pickup on South Street. Pickup on South Street is one of my favorite noirs of all time. In fact, I wish Criterion would come out with Pickup on South Street on Blu-ray. They have not done it yet. Shock Corridor doesn't quite hold up, if you ask me. It's kind of goofy. But Sam Fuller was really super, super cool. Mm-hmm. But Big Red One is great. There was the Big Red One, and then there was the Big Red One, the reconstruction.
Yes.
And that's what this includes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why our fans may want to know about the Big Red One is because it's pretty much the only movie of worth besides the Star Wars trilogy that starred Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was in the Big Red One.
I know.
And that's like a prestige film.
Yeah.
So Mark Hamill, who almost did nothing beyond Star Wars, he did do the Big Red One.
I see Mark Hamill every so often.
What?
He lives like 4 blocks away from me.
There was a shot of him. He Instagrammed a shot of himself recently. Yeah. He lost because he was getting fat. That guy was getting fat.
I know.
He lost a lot of weight
for the Star Wars movie.
For the Star Wars.
It's like
movie.
I gotta get in shape. Yeah.
I know.
All he's been doing is the voice of the Joker and Batman animated stuff.
Now Carrie Fisher, she's no spring chicken anymore, and she's looking pretty bloated too. Now I have no idea if they're asking her to lose weight because she's got to lose like 50 pounds. I mean, Harrison Ford has stayed pretty fit.
Yeah. It's seriously that's gonna. I don't know if that's gonna work. Bringing all of them back, I really don't. It feels like
it's just too convenient. It's like in real life they'd all be dead or on some crazy planet you never see them.
It just feels like a lot of bionic hip replacement jokes. I don't know. By the way, Beverly Hills Cop, they're doing another one.
I know.
Come out in March of 2016.
Brett Ratner.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't Brett Ratner realize that he's like the most hated? Like he's like synonymous with crap. He must know he is synonymous with crap.
I don't think he cares.
He's got to.
I don't think he cares. I've interviewed the guy. He really has blinders. The world is what he thinks it is.
There's a funny story about he directed that third X-Men movie.
By the way, Donald Sterling. You know what he said? You know what he said in an interview about the woman who made the tape, that Stiviano girlfriend lady?
This is like a week old, but yes.
Yeah, I know. I wish I'd paid her off. Well, really, what do you be more discreet? Anyway, I just think all this stuff is funny. Sorry,
anyway,
carry on.
The story here's the short and inaccurate version of the story. Brett Ratner, he directs the X-Men movie. Mm-hmm. He is so far over his head. He winds up calling Bryan Singer on the phone and saying, "I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please tell me how to direct all these actors and all these effects and all this green screens? I just don't know how to do it." Because he had never really done a film of that scale.
So he called up Bryan Singer and he said, "I've got all these young boys and these twins around me.
I will trade you the young boys for one piece of advice on how to direct this big movie." Anyway, Big Red One, highly recommended.
It's just awesome. It is an awesome film.
Bridges of Madison County.
Not an awesome film. I hate this movie.
It's weird.
I'm really looking forward to Jersey Boys. I just want to say I'm down with Clint. I think Jersey Boys is going to be an amazing film. I'm looking forward. It's the only movie this summer that I'm really looking forward to, the only studio film. But this thing bored me until I felt like I was sawdust. It was lugubrious.
Clint has a very he has an aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's extremely slow moving, slow evolving aesthetic.
Boy,
it sort of matches his gait, his walk, his vibe. It matches how he directs movies. Bridges of Madison County, what we're trying to say, was boring as crap.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to see Meryl Streep and Clint Eastwood like make out or be lovers or anything like that.
Yeah.
Not interested. But it was a big deal at the time because Bridges of Madison County was a huge, huge book. And it was considered a totally prestige project. As Clint's directing it, he's starring in it. Meryl Streep. They got a lot of great people. Edited by Joel Cox. The screenplay was by Richard Gravenese from Fisher King. So it was like a big deal prestige movie. But in the end, it was just so boring. A rare Clint, almost complete misfire.
But a lot of people love this movie. I know people who just will, when they hear me say I don't like that movie, they punch me.
Really?
Yeah. They can't.
That's terrible. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. And then Memphis Belle, not a great film, directed by Michael Caton Jones, produced by David Putnam, the Oscar-winning and Palme d'Or-winning producer of Chariots of Fire and The Mission, who has not really been much of a producer for years. He briefly ran Columbia Pictures at the time that he greenlit things like The Last Emperor and Hope and Glory, and it was a good time. And then he got pushed out by Coca-Cola because he made films that were a little too artsy and prestigious and not crappy enough, and that's too bad. But Columbia really did well under him, and this is not his best film. It's not Michael Caton Jones's best film, but it is a good film, and it's based on the story of the Memphis Belle, most famously popularized in a short film, a documentary short during World War II, made by William Wyler, about the crew of this amazing bomber, this legendary B-17. Known as Memphis Belle. And stars Matthew Modine and Tate Donovan, D.B. Sweeney, Billy Zane, Sean Astin, Harry Connick Jr., Eric Stoltz. It's just a really great cast. Wonderful score by George Fenton. The movie ages surprisingly well. It's better now than it was at the time. I still don't think it's a great film, but I actually enjoyed it more. It feels a little more of like an old school classic movie now that it's aged a bit. And you do actually have the original William Wyler documentary in here as well, so you can kind of compare everything and get a sense of it. And it makes a wonderful transition to Blu-ray, I will say that. But as for Michael Caton Jones, I got to say, still his best film, Rob Roy.
Yes.
Good Blu-ray, though. It's a good-looking Blu-ray.
I like that movie.
Good-looking Blu-ray.
Good Carter Burwell score.
Yep.
We have two from Spielberg. We have Amistad with Morgan Freeman, Anthony Hopkins, Digimon Hansu.
You know what?
And Matthew McConaughey.
You know what? I got to tell you, Amistad. I just think the only things I remember about Amistad is everyone overacts in that movie. Anthony Hopkins acts with his lamb chops, right? His John Quincy Adams.
That's right.
Hair, the lamb chop hair does all the acting for him. And all I remember is Djimon Hounsou in this is when you know, even if you're an Oscar-winning director and you're a legendary director and you directed like films that have made gobs and gobs of money, you still can have a moment where you space out and don't realize that an actor just delivered a dreadful moment in a dreadful way, and you think it's a good take. When Djimon Hounsou stands up in court and says, "We want free." Okay, I'm sure everybody on the set probably thought, what a moving moment. Me, in the theater, watching that, you know what I thought the next line should be? Bananas. That's what it felt like. It's like, this is a horrible line delivery. This is a dreadful moment. This is campy.
It really is.
We want free.
Well, because it was Spielberg in his Give Me an Award moment. You know,
Yeah.
he has the Lincoln, the Schindler's
You know
List,
what?
the Amistad. He wanted this to be the ultimate document of slavery.
Don't ever be on the nose. My biggest complaint about movies and screenplays in general is when people are on the nose. There is a thing called subtext. You don't actually have to say a thing to say a thing. You know? You can let other things in the scene say it. And "We Want Free" is on the nose. If anybody ever hands me their screenplay to read, the one thing you will usually see the most in it is OTN, on the nose. It's my biggest peeve. When people say things that they say what they mean, I don't like that.
Look, as a Jew, I don't appreciate on the nose.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, Amistad, whatever. Now, Spielberg now, if you ask me, he doesn't... Spielberg he's a little rudderless in the last, 10 years. He just sort of does, stuff. Here's something I'll do. And one of those films is The Terminal. Not a bad film.
I remember what you said. You remember what you said to me at the time when we talked about when this was announced?
I did not.
You said, doesn't this feel like the movie that they all decided to make between other movies?
Really is true. They all had a hole in their schedule, and
Yeah.
they decided to make The Terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Look, it's an interesting conceit. Tom Hanks plays this Eastern European visitor while he's at the airport in New York. His country goes to war, so he cannot enter the United States because his passport is from a country that doesn't really exist. It's in the middle of a coup, and he can't go back home because his home country is in a war. So he literally has to live in the terminal until his country's coup is over. And
Isn't that guy still living in a terminal? The real guy? Isn't he? Or has he moved to a different terminal or a different airport?
No, there's no way. This movie was made in 2004. He'd been living in the terminal for 10 years.
That'd be awesome. Wouldn't that be great?
I mean, how much Cinnabon can a guy eat in 10 years? Anyway, you know what? Look, I'm not saying this is a bad film. It's fine. It's a sweet little comedy. It's very nice. Tom Hanks is terrific. Catherine Zeta-Jones at the height of her beauty. It's very nice. But I think 10 other people could have directed this movie. You do not need Steven Spielberg to direct this movie unless
probably true.
He has a hole in his schedule.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Let me go through some Olive films, and then we'll hit Blazing Saddles and move on to some other things after that. We got 4 films from Olive here. They continue to very successfully mine the Paramount library. Johnny Come Lately, terrific James Cagney film from 1943. Very Capra-esque in many respects. This is actually really very, very Capra-esque. Directed by William K. Howard, who was just one of those regular studio guys. 1943. Basically a down-and-out newspaper guy who gets a second shot at it and becomes kind of a corruption fighter as a newspaperman. A lot of interesting things that could really apply to the digital age as well, and the internet and today's versions of yellow journalism. Cagney was terrific. And he'd won just the year before an Oscar for Best Actor in Yankee Doodle Dandy, so it was a good year for him, and he was really, really working his new choice of options, not being a gangster, and really great. So there's a terrific score in this thing as well, and I really recommend it on Blu-ray. Johnny Come Lately looks really good. Olive did another really good job there. Love Happy. One of the lesser-known Marx Brothers movies, to be honest, from 1950. It was the very last film that the Marx Brothers did, and you can tell they're getting older, and they're not quite as sharp as they used to be, and their whole style has changed. Like, the movies have sort of passed them by. By 1950, it's a different world. They're the 1930s style that they were accustomed to doesn't really. It's not really the new thing, but. They were smart enough to stick Marilyn Monroe in this movie, and not bad. Also smart enough to hire Frank Tashlin to be the co-screenwriter. So the story of the film is basically a Harpo story, but Frank Tashlin, who of course would go on to write a lot of very funny movies and direct a lot of very, very funny Jerry Lewis movies, does a pretty good version with the screenplay. The only problem here is that everybody's getting a little bit, long in the tooth. But Groucho's still Groucho, Harpo's still Harpo, Chico's still Chico, and Zeppo and Gummo are nowhere to be seen because they gave up on this silly act long ago because, frankly, they're not funny. They're the two who weren't funny. 3 of them were, 2 of them weren't. And do you even know what Zeppo and Gummo look like? Gummo was in 1 movie, and
yes.
Zeppo was in 2.
Yes.
Something like that.
They look like
they're just guys. They're just
2 arms, 2 legs, and a nose.
A couple of guys, and they're like, we don't really, our brothers talked us into it. Anyway, so 91 brisk minutes in Love Happy with Marilyn Monroe and the Marx Brothers. Worth checking out. Not the best, but it's a nice little thing. Home of the Brave, also a terrific film based on a play by Arthur Lawrence, who wrote Rope. And this is one of the earlier films to deal with race in the movies. 1949, rough time to be really tackling race. You're between World War II and the Korean War, and everybody kind of wants to get on with things. So here you have a story of a black soldier who's had a nervous breakdown that results in him being paralyzed through a strange medical condition that you'll understand better when you watch the film. But anyway, it is all about racial discrimination from the military standpoint, and it is a really, really powerful film, still very powerful, beautifully directed by Mark Robson, who was one of the early guys, at the time, really very kind of heavy-hitting guys. And get the rest of the credit. Stanley Kramer produced it. Of course, Stanley Kramer, big, kind of social activist. He was the guy that was really kind of driving things very early on about making social statements in movies. And screenplay by Carl Foreman. Carl Foreman, who of course was one of the blacklisted writers at the time, would go on to write High Noon, among many other great scripts. Anyway, really, really seminal film, legendary film. Lloyd Bridges is fantastic in this movie. Everybody's fantastic in this movie. Steve Brody's great. I mean, they're just all really, really good. So definitely worth watching. Home of the Brave. And then lastly, from the Olive line, John Wayne and Flying Tigers, as long as we're on a World War II thing. This was kind of a big technical audience pleaser at the time. And it's about a group of American soldiers before the United States entered the war, before Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and the United States entered World War II. This is about a bunch of guys who went to basically fight the Japanese on behalf of China. And great pilots, and John Wayne does his John Wayne thing, and everybody else kind of gets into his orbit. Wonderful music by Victor Young, which is really one of his better scores, and Victor Young wrote a lot of great scores, and this one is really first rate. Otherwise, some great flying footage, and it's a fun movie to watch. It's it's not a legendary film, it's not a great war film by any means, but it's definitely worth watching. It's very fun and enjoyable.
Look, Wade.
Mark, there you go. All right, Mark.
Yes.
Blazing Saddles.
Now, Blazing Saddles. Here's what I'm going to tell you about Blazing Saddles. This is a rather thick 40th anniversary edition that I would suggest you do not buy, because here's what you get. Here's what you get that's different from the 17 other versions of Blazing Saddles, including a couple Blu-rays.
I have Blazing Saddles in the Mel Brooks Mega Thing
which
collection,
I have too.
Which I can't, you can't sort of swap that out. You can't sort of go, I'm going to, because it's all in one great big brick.
Yes.
So do I really, if I get this, then I'm going to wind up double dipping and owning them both on Blu-ray.
Oh, you don't care about that stuff. You love that stuff.
I'm just
I care about that stuff.
Hypothetical.
Here's what you get.
Yeah.
You get 10 collectible lobby cards, art cards.
Don't care.
You get a brand new featurette called Blaze of Glory, Mel Brooks' Wild Wild West.
Don't really care.
About the movie and whatever.
Whatever.
Don't care.
The
rest have been appropriated from other iterations of the DVD and Blu-ray. The additional scenes, the 75 pilot episode of the TV series, Black Bart, Black Bart was one of the original proposed names for the movie.
Right.
Otherwise, I just don't, look, Blazing Saddles is one of my all-time favorite comedies of all time, 100% hands down. Every time I see it, I laugh uproariously. On the AFI's list of top comedies of all time, it was number 6. It is an all-time classic. It deserves every accolade and every 40th anniversary and 50th anniversary it'll ever get. But I'm just saying that unless someone comes up with something to make it worth double, triple, quadruple dipping, I don't know. I'm just not buying it. But the movie's amazing. I mean, the movie should be purchased in some form. If you don't own Blazing Saddles, you should own this one just because it's the newest and the latest and the greatest. But it's fine. But yeah,
All right.
great. Gene Wilder, Cleavon Little. By the way, Cleavon Little. Mel Brooks wanted Richard Pryor to play that role.
I know. I'm so glad Cleavon Little did.
I know.
Richard Pryor would have been fine, but I mean, it's just that's one of those things where you're like, wow, that is a second casting choice, and I'm so glad it happened. Yeah, I love this movie. I really do. And you couldn't make this movie today. People would be afraid of it.
I know. There's a scene with because they say the N-word a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a story about how one of the actors in that first scene where the two guys, Slim Pickens and the other guy, they ride up to the train to the gang working on the railroad, and he didn't want to say the N-word.
No, I know.
Because he's a human being and shouldn't want to say the N-word.
No.
So Cleavon Little had to take the guy aside, and Cleavon Little's African American. Cleavon Little had to take the actor aside, and the actor was white. And he said, "Look, man, you know what? In any other context, I would punch in the face.
Yeah.
But for this, it's good fun. It's a great script. Don't worry about it. Don't be uncomfortable." So
there it is.
He wound up saying it, and it's just great. I just love this movie so much. And again, it's a movie. It's like you couldn't make that movie today, but somehow we made that movie back then. And you know what? We survived as a nation.
We sure did.
We survived Blazing Saddles. We survived
Yes.
All in the Family. We survived all this stuff as a nation.
It's just political correctness drives me crazy. It makes for a less fun world. Let me blow through a bunch of crap first, and then I'll let Mark launch into a film that I know he and I are both passionate about. First, I'm going to make mention of John Malkovich in Deadly Code, which is a DVD ultraviolet set.
World.
This is from Wrekin Hill, Wrekin, who occasionally releases a few things. This is a really weird John Malkovich film. He shows up in just some bizarre straight-to-video stuff every once in a while, and always makes it interesting, but you kind of go, why would you even want to be in this? Anyway, here he plays... Boy, this is just so odd. He plays the godfather of a Siberian mob clan who have to live in the middle of Transnistria and tries to get his grandson to, honor the code of the clan. It's a very, very unusual movie, directed by Gabriele Salvatore, who, Gabriele Salvatore is the Italian director of Mediterraneo, which won an Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. And I'm just watching this, and I'm just thinking, this is the most unusual combination of people and everything, and an Italian film about a Siberian gang with John Malkovich. How did this movie even happen? It's very strange. Not a bad film, but just vastly unusual. And then here's a bunch of crap, a bunch of just B-movie monster crap. We have a movie here called The Zombinator.
Yeah. Awesome.
The idea clearly being that we want to make basically a movie that rips. I mean, look, they even rip off the Terminator just with the artwork. Look at the artwork.
It's the best.
It's like the Terminator skull artwork, except we're trying to ride the Terminator wave and the zombie wave at the same time. About a guy who used to be a special ops guy and he's become a zombie killer, played by Joseph Avila, who's one of the, I don't know what he does. He must be one of these wrestler dudes. He's really just musclehead, meathead guy who can't act. Anyway, there's a guy he has to beat who's a mad scientist who's turning people into zombies. It's dreadful, absolutely horrible movie. But I'm sure somebody will enjoy the campiness of it. And then we have another one of these stupid monster movie mashups called Poseidon Rex, which is about, it's basically it's like a sea monster that's part Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I guess it winds up being something a bit like Godzilla. I don't know. It's not nearly as interesting as anything in Pacific Rim. I thought the monsters in Pacific Rim were a lot more interesting. But this is it's a little bit of Jaws and a little bit of Piranha and a little bit of Jurassic Park, all with fairly bad special effects. The only noteworthy thing here is that this is directed by Mark L. Lester. Mark L. Lester, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Does the name not ring a bell to you?
He surely does.
Why would Mark Lester ring a bell?
Because that's Richard Lester's son.
Is it Richard Lester's son? Is Mark Lester his son?
No idea.
Well, anyway, the name Mark Lester should be familiar to just about anybody with respect to 80s movies and so forth in particular. Mark Lester has done crap like, Pterodactyl and numerous other really cheesy movies, but but
here's the thing. He did 2 movies I like.
He did 2 movies, well, like 3 movies of note. He did Commando, first of all.
That's good.
Yeah, Commando, Firestarter.
That's right.
In the 80s, he did a lot of legendary films. But he also made Roller Boogie, which I think is just one of the great films of all time.
How about Truck Stop Women?
Truck Stop Women, absolutely. No, he's been like kind of, but in the 80s was that moment when he had a little bit of he was like momentarily a guy. In Class of 1984. He made some legit movies then, Armed and Dangerous, so Showdown in Little Tokyo, Extreme Justice, but he's become a schlockmeister and he's lost all credibility.
But the good news is that our names are only 4 letters apart because I'm Mark L. Kaiser.
Well, there you go.
Mark L. Lester.
And then last on the schlock list, my goodness, this was a big bomb. Aaron Eckhart starred in I, Frankenstein 3D, which came out earlier this year and just bombed as hard as anything has ever bombed. Stuart Beatty directed this thing and wrote this thing and will probably not get another gig ever. This lost a ton of money. Aaron Eckhart plays essentially Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein's creature, 2 centuries in the future. And there's this bizarre, like, supernatural battle going on between fallen angels and men, and it's like this very strange genre mashup that, I guess worked better in a graphic novel, but here you're just, I don't know. Aaron Eckhart's not a star, man. Not a
anymore.
Star. Not a star.
He had a moment. It was like he was trying to reach escape velocity.
I've heard so many stories, too. My wife produced most of their short films in film school together.
Really?
Did you know that? I heard all these stories about Aaron being like the crazy method actor, they catch a rabbit on the side of the road and he has to cook it and really eat it because he's trying to get into character. It's like, dude, it's a student film. You really don't need to work that hard. You don't need to go to the wall.
Well, that's like that famous story with from Marathon Man.
Yeah.
When so Dustin Hoffman, it was with Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier.
Mm-hmm.
Laurence Olivier was one of the great actors of the stage and screen actors of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And so Dustin Hoffman in the movie plays a marathon runner. And he's always jogging,
Does he really?
jogging.
Really?
Yes.
Is that why it's called Marathon Man?
No, it's not. Anyway,
I thought it was because, you know what I really thought it was?
Yes.
I thought it was because he's always eating marathon bars in the movie.
Let's get farther away from the story.
Okay.
So then Laurence Olivier plays the bad guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in order to get into one of the scenes, Dustin Hoffman is running around the block because he's got to get himself winded and get himself kind of a little bit sweaty and whatever. And so Olivier, who is one of the masters, one of the greats of all time, says to Dustin Hoffman, what are you doing? He says, well, I need to jog so that I can get into this scene and get ready for it. He says, why don't you just act?
Yeah. That's why they call it acting.
Yes.
Right on.
Anyway, Wade, we're about to talk about one of my favorite films of last year.
Yes.
Her.
Yes!
You know what I love? Here's why I love this movie in
Such a good film.
in three sentences.
This was Lafka's #1 film.
Tied with Gravity.
Yep.
I love this film because it is utterly charming and dreamlike and provocative and emotional, while at the same time telling society we are full of crap.
Yep.
Right? Telling us about how our gadgets have completely disassociated everybody from other humans and from relationships and from caring and from connecting.
When you consider that this movie is mostly close-ups of Joaquin Phoenix, who, by the way, is not, Joaquin Phoenix is a movie star in spite of how he looks, not because of how he looks. Let's remember, Joaquin Phoenix is not a guy whose face just warms you when you see it 20 feet high. It's a face that sort of has to earn your love and admiration, which is why he's such a great actor, because he does it. He fights through these very odd, almost off-putting features and compels you because he's a great actor. It is mostly that face talking to the disembodied voice of Scarlett Johansson. I mean, when you think about it, is there anything in concept more uncinematic There really isn't.
Oh, no, there is.
Well, a few things.
A guy sitting in a chair for 4 hours against a black screen in the dark.
Sure.
That's uncinematic.
It's uncinematic. But here...
How about this? A guy staring at a watch.
Okay, great.
Well, here's another one.
Oh, thank you. But somehow, Spike Jonze took this wonderful, meaningful, poignant, very prescient and, forward-thinking and all about now screenplay, and he made it work in a really cinematic way. I mean, it's a beautiful... The art direction of this film is magnificent.
Oh, it's great.
It's just art directed to the ends of the earth. It's beautiful.
It takes place in the slightly near future.
Just barely, yeah.
Now, some of it they shot in Shanghai, but a lot of it they shot in L.A.
It's fine.
And they futurized L.A. just a little bit.
Oh, it's just wonderful.
And the costumes too. They futurized the costumes, the wardrobe just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Joaquin Phoenix is great. It has a lot to say about how we live now without hitting you over the head with
it's fantastic.
Being some we're this little in the moment film that's going to scold you for being on your phone too much.
Fantastic.
It's a great film.
It is.
I love it. One of the best films of last year.
Glorious.
All right, so let's do a little bit of music.
Yep.
We have Toto. You know what? Toto. They were lame for so many years. But on Family Guy, they used Africa.
Yeah, that's what I was just humming.
And keep humming because that's what people want to hear. That's great. They used Africa on an episode of Family Guy, and I listened to it going, you know what? I think I like this song. What happened? What have I become? Now Toto's their album, the Africa album, won the Grammy for Best Album.
I know.
It was hugely successful and very critically acclaimed, but they're a little bit cheesy. But I think now they're getting a little bit of another look, a bit of a reconsideration. Anyway, we have Toto live in Poland. This is the 35th anniversary of Toto. This was done in 2013 in Poland. And you get all their big hits, obviously, Africa and Stop Loving You and Rosanna. Don't sing Rosanna.
I'm not. What I was going to play part of is Straight No Chasers' 12 Days of Christmas medley. You ever heard that?
No, we're not doing that.
From the group Straight No Chaser. It's an a cappella group. They sing 12 Days of Christmas, and it.
What does this have to do with Toto?
Because part of it is. It becomes, it's amazing. At a certain point in their 12, people should go online and just find this. Straight No Chaser, 12 Days of Christmas. Near the end of it, the music from 12 Days of Christmas becomes Africa. Dun, 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 on the 4th day of Christmas. It's really funny. It's really funny. It's brilliant. It's genius. Every once in a while, you'll hear it actually played around Christmas time, and you just go, "This is bizarre and amazing. Why have I never heard this before?"
Okay, Dio.
Oh, as in Ronnie James?
Yes, heavy metal band I never liked, huh?
Yeah, you were supposed to say no, as in like Shmuley.
Shmuley Dio.
Shmuley Dio.
This is from 1993. This was in London's Hammersmith Apollo. Holy Diver, you might know some of these. One of the tracks here is called Drum Solo.
Ah, yes.
Which I'm going to guess is probably the drum solo. Anyway, Stand Up and Shout. I was never a huge Dio fan, so if you like it, go for it. It's on Blu-ray, but again, this is a 21-year-old concert, so it doesn't look super Blu-ray. But if you like it, dig it. One Direction... Reaching for the Stars Part 2, the next chapter, an unofficial biography of One Direction. This is the story of the band, and it includes tour footage from the UK and Mexico, Melbourne, Miami. One Direction will be gone soon.
Dreadful.
No one will care about them.
Dreadful.
And after a while, you know what? Look, with bands like this,
they are an
nobody
abomination.
even cares about their music. All they care about is who they're dating.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, Harry Styles was seen with Taylor Swift. Oh, really? Can you name one of their songs? No.
It's true.
But they were
It's
seen
really
with Taylor Swift. That's all
really
that
true. That's true. Whatever. All right.
Are we done? Because this is
no, we got. Well, let me blow through some foreign language stuff, and we'll do the TV, and then that should just about wrap it up. Tanta Agua is a film movement release. Definitely worth checking out. This is a Spanish-language film that was made through an unholy alliance of Uruguay, Mexico, Netherlands, and Germany. Don't ask me how that all worked out. It's the only way they could raise money for it. Story of a father and his kids on vacation, and father basically just struggling to be a better dad, and his kids trying to grow up. It's a really, really good film by Ana Guevara and Leticia Jorge. You really get a wonderful sense of women directors bringing something to the material that man would not. So that is absolutely lovely. Then you get this fantastic comedy called Viola by Matias Pinheiro. This is a Cinema Guild release. And actually, he and his actress do a great audio commentary on here that you definitely should listen to. I've never heard of Matias Pinheiro before, but I'm looking forward to him before. This all takes place in Buenos Aires, and it's about a young woman who becomes part of a local Shakespeare company. And it's all about the kind of backstage interactions that happen at that part. Artists in Brazil, it's a lovely, honest look at an environment that's probably the same all around the world. And then we also have The Last Time I Saw Macau. A friend of mine just moved from Macau to Hong Kong, so I always have interest in anything that has anything to do with Macau. And this is a detective movie that's kind of a docudrama thing. This is also from Cinema Guild, and it's kind of noirish, I guess is a better way to put it. Dealing with a guy trying to solve a kidnapping in Macau of a friend, and it feels a little bit bogey. And I don't mean bogus, I mean as in Humphrey Bogart, and that is always a good thing. Simon and the Oaks, directed by Lisa Olin. We're on a female directing kick right now. Simon and the Oaks is a really, really good movie. This is based on events around Jewish children that were harbored in Sweden to sort of save them from from the fate that was befalling their families in Denmark and in Norway, which were both invaded by the Nazis. Sweden, of course, was neutral at the time. And this was not exactly an act of neutrality, but a lot of Swedish families were clearly not neutral. And it's the story of a kid named Simon, who is one of these kids, and all about his background and what he discovers as he grows up. And it is a lovely film. It was released this last year. Got almost no traction. Definitely deserves to be discovered again. It made a few festivals, but did not really do much in theaters. So definitely discover that one. And lastly, Gloria. A lot of people love this movie. I didn't particularly love it. I respect the lead performance, but it is, just one of those movies that I just can't. It just feels too familiar. Gloria is an older woman. This is Argentine, I believe it is. And Gloria is like an older, or is it Chilean? It's Chilean or Argentine? I forget which one. Might be Chilean. Anyway, she's an older woman. She's retired. She's divorced. She's trying to be young again. She hooks up with some old dude and thinks she's got like her new dude, and it doesn't really work out. And it's just sort of going through her life, and she just does not want to age, and she's just trying to be like a young woman as an older woman. And you see her naked a lot in this thing, and I really wish I hadn't. I don't mean to be rude or sound sexist, but some people simply should not be nude on film. And I will say, as wonderful an actress as she is, and I'm going to try to pronounce her name, Paulina Garcia. Did I get that right? Anyway, she's a wonderful actress, but, this movie just feels like another one of those give me an award movies. I'm just going to act for an hour and a half. Anyway.
Wait, we have Wolverine Weapon X, Tomorrow Dies Today. This is based on the comic book series, which has been animated and turned into a Blu-ray.
Yay.
In this one here, Wolverine dies and never comes back.
Ah.
Actually, they are killing off.
They are killing off Wolverine. Yeah,
which is just a way of saying we're going to kill him off and bring him back. And
exactly.
And a bunch of 15-year-olds will buy all the comics and then be surprised when he comes back alive.
Yakta.
Anyway, this is okay. I think some of the Batman stuff has been better. The Batman animated stuff has been on a real roll recently.
Yeah.
Also, we have Perry Mason Movie Collection Volume 2. This is just 3 DVDs packaged together. This includes 6 movies, the names of which will mean nothing to anybody. But they got some good guest stars in these. Now, there was a time back in the day when each of the networks had their own Movie of the Week division.
Yeah,
True. It was their MOW division, and all they would do is worry about movies of the week. And Perry Mason came from that sensibility.
Yes, he did.
Are these movies good? If you love Perry Mason, why not? If you don't love Perry Mason or never heard of him, I wouldn't even bother. We also have Eastbound and Down. I don't know what's happening with this show. This is the fourth and final season. The show started really hot. Danny McBride became like, he had a moment, he was in that like Jonah Hill group, where he was like the hot comic. Actually, I actually saw Danny McBride at, where did I see
Well,
Danny?
he wound up writing Your Highness, and he infuriated all of us for having to sit through it, and I think
That's the worst.
I think we tried to murder him, didn't we?
I know I tried to.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw Danny McBride at, what is that sushi place on the corner of Hollywood and Highland? Katsuya.
Yeah,
No,
I
was it
would know
Katsuya?
that.
Huh?
Like I would know that.
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm having sushi there. Anyway, so Eastbound and Down, it's a little more energized because they see the end is near. They want to end on a high. So there's definitely a couple of good episodes in there. But season 3 is probably the worst season, if you ask me. But anyway, so this is season 4, the final season of the HBO series. Check that out.
Nice.
I got 2 more to talk about. One is a complete 5th season of Barney Miller. Now, a couple weeks ago, I sent Wade a link to a video of Hal Linden, who was the star of Barney Miller, wishing Abe Vigoda a happy 90th birthday.
Greatest thing in the world.
And Abe Vigoda like dances and he does a little jig because he's Abe Vigoda and he's the best.
Yeah.
I liked Barney Miller. Barney Miller to me was a very good B sitcom. It wasn't one of the great sitcoms out there. It wasn't All in the Family, but it was a very enjoyable B sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And it all takes place at the 12th Precinct, Wade. The 12th Precinct in Greenwich Village.
Totally.
It's good stuff. Barney Miller. And then finally we have, at least finally on my end, we have, which comes in its own beautiful little orange tote bag, we have Orange is the New Black.
Yeah. It came in this giant tote bag with a bunch of crap and the screwdriver, and they really went to town with all the persuasions,
They
call
did.
this stuff.
They did. This is the first season. This was nominated for a bunch of Golden Globes, including Best Actress. This show is a bit more of an acquired taste than something like House of Cards, the other Netflix original show. I don't know that I really buy all this. It's a little bit, it was made by the creator of Weeds.
Yep.
So it's a little bit over the top. It's just a little bit comical. So it's not, it's a bit of as I say, it's a bit of an acquired taste, but it's fine. It's based on a memoir about this woman from Brooklyn who winds up going to a federal penitentiary.
Yep.
And she, she's there with the guards and the other ladies in the penitentiary. And, some people love this show. This is more of a love or hated show than House of Cards. House of Cards was like pretty much universally loved.
Well, Orange is the New Black I have not watched and gotten into, so I'm sure I will. I'll take this opportunity to do that. And then, real quickly on my end, let me get through some new Megahertz Networks releases. Megahertz usually does all the foreign language television stuff. Really good titles this time. We've got Kennedy's Brain, which is from a Henning Mankell bestseller. This is a great production. This is 2 DVDs, about 3 hours long, a German production based on one of these Henning Mankell novels about a woman who's an anthropologist or an archaeologist who uses her archaeological skills to solve her son's murder in this globe-spanning investigation. Really good, really interesting, very well directed, excellent production value, first-rate performances. Could not be any better. It's really, really good. That is Kennedy's Brain, based on the Henning Mankell novel. And then there's also the German miniseries, Crime Stories, which is based on some writings by Ferdinand von Schirach. Don't know who that is. But anyway, it's about a defense attorney and all of these horrible cases that he defends, these people who are just represent all walks of life and nationalities and crimes. And this is not like an American production where you're like, boy, I hope he gets them off, or I hope they, if they're guilty, they get what's coming to them. This is a character study. It's not even about whether they're guilty or not. It's not about whether he gets them off. It's not a whodunit. It's not Law and Order. This is all about looking inside people's souls. It is really well written, beautifully photographed, really first-rate television. I wish we had miniseries like this here. Really, really good. And then lastly, from the Megahertz front, The Spider, which takes place in 1949, 1950, and in Copenhagen. And it's sort of the shadow of World War II, and Nazi occupation still has cast a very, very long shadow on Danish society. And it's, trying to sort of get over all of the leftover gunk that left, which is a lot of crime and a lot of black marketeering. And it's pretty gritty. And really, really well done. It's on 3 DVDs, a miniseries that lasts in somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6-7 hours, and really first rate, really, really good. Also, really excellent production value there. And then lastly, National Geographic. We very infrequently get National Geographic stuff, but there are a lot of these that are these are worth mentioning. Lost Faces of the Bible. These are all productions that were originally aired on the National Geographic Channel. Come in the archetypal, unmistakable yellow packaging, that yellow spine that just screams at you, so you can't miss these things if you go to see them at a Best Buy or something. Lost Faces of the Bible is essentially an archaeological revisitation of 4 ancient skulls that were unearthed in the Bible lands, and using that as kind of a prism to investigate what, fact and fiction and scripture and history and all of that. Killer Quest is a wildlife documentary all about wolves in their hunting season when they're going after the buffalo. And this was shot in Canada. And mostly about great photography. Can't say I'm really a fan of wolves. I think they're nasty. Did I mention that we have a mangy, sick, geriatric...
Don't call your wife mangy, sick,
a mangy, sick, geriatric coyote that likes to nap under the lemon tree in our backyard? Did I mention that?
You have a lemon tree?
Well, it's a sick lemon tree. Maybe that's the reason. It's dying. The lemon tree's almost dead.
Bees love meat.
But it's like a dog. Every time, we show my daughter, we bring her to the window and go, look at the coyote. She goes, woof, woof. So she thinks it's our dog.
Did you know bees love meat?
Do what?
Bees love meat.
Bees?
Yes. So I was having okay.
Like as in bzz, yes. Honeybees?
Yes. So I was having a outside lunch with a bunch of about a dozen people.
Yeah.
And a bee shows up. And I hate bees.
You hate bees. I've seen you around bees.
You'll never see me.
You turn into a nervous Nancy around bees.
I start running.
You literally stand up and you start swatting and you run down the sidewalk shrieking like a schoolgirl.
Yeah. So anyway, lunch is almost over, and the only thing.
And I'm not kidding. It's true.
No, it is true. I hate bees.
You flip out.
So the only thing left on the table meat-wise was like half a piece of chicken. So the bee comes, and I'm stuck in this table. I'm about to freak out, and the half a piece of chicken was near me. And one of the women at the table says, "Eat the piece of chicken now." I said, "What?" Because bees hate meat. Bees are attracted to the meat. And I went, "What do you bees? The bees eat like flowers or something. Bees don't eat meat. Bees aren't like carnivores." He goes, "No, eat the meat now. I'm telling you, bees don't like meat." So I'm like, "I'm full, but I'll eat the meat." I ate the meat. Bee went away.
Really?
Bee went away. And then she was saying how it's like in the South, in outdoor barbecues, they will take a piece of meat and they will put it like 50 feet away, and the bees will wind up gravitating towards that piece of meat so that your outdoor lunch can proceed peacefully without bees.
Wow! And who knew?
Who knew? Bees like meat.
That won't work for Mike Rotman. He'll go the other direction from the meat because he's a vegetarian. Okay, never mind.
He eats bees. Which is
all right, and then last 2 titles from National Geographic. Into the Cosmos collection, which is a little bit exploitative because they obviously are taking advantage of the fact that the new Cosmos production is hot on television. So they went and threw up a bunch of productions that they did for the National Geographic Channel that are all about, storms in the Milky Way and stars and comets and all this kind of stuff. And they're fine, but it's not like the new Cosmos. So that's a 3-disc set called Into the Cosmos. And then lastly, the Best of Nature collection, which is a 6-disc set in 3 titles called Untamed Americas, Great Migrations, and Secret Life of Predators. And this is basically just a whole bunch of programs all about nature and animals, and all of it really, really well photographed. It doesn't really matter what's on here. If you love nature photography and if you love the National Geographic approach, which is very scholarly and intelligent and well written and very painstaking and time consuming to put this stuff together, you will really appreciate this. The only downside, it's not on Blu-ray. So, and you watch it and you're like, that is so well shot, I wish that was on Blu-ray. But that being said, Best of Nature, probably some of the best nature documentaries you're ever going to be able to get on DVD of any kind. And with that, Mark, we are done. Any final thoughts? Any outros you want to test?
Here's my outro. I want to test this outro, and I've
Okay.
been working on this.
Test it.
Goodbye.